I'm Rusty P.
Almost 20 years ago, AFA took a stand against the war on Christmas. Tools like the Naughty or Nice list showed which companies banned employees from saying Merry Christmas. And the Christmas buttons? Need I say more? As the war grows into an all-out assault on the gospel, AFA keeps fighting back, and your financial gift helps. As our thanks this month, we'll send you a 10-pack of Christmas buttons to wear and share. Visit afa.net/Christmas2025 to give today.
Jenna Ellis in the morning on American Family Radio.
I love talking about the things of God because of truth and the biblical worldview. The U.S. Constitution obligates our government to preserve and protect the rights that our founders recognize come from God, our Creator, not our government. I believe that Scripture in the Bible is very clear that God is the one that raised up each of you, and God has allowed us to be brought here to this specific moment in time.
This is Jenna Ellis in the morning.
Good morning. It is Wednesday, December 10th, and the 2020 campaign begins now, at least according to Daybreak Insider. The president spoke to a packed house in Philadelphia, and Trump gave his first real affordability speech, kind of borrowing that terminology from the Democrats. He said, "I have no higher priority than making America affordable again. They, Biden, caused the high prices and we're bringing them down. It's a simple message." Meanwhile, according to Newsmax, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles hasn't informed President Trump yet. This may be the way of informing him, where, staffers for Trump always knew that they could put things in publications. They would inevitably wind their way to his desk and he'd find out that way. So I don't know. Maybe she's making an announcement in Newsmax. But she says she plans to push him aggressively onto the campaign trail ahead of the 2026 midterms. She said on the Mom View podcast, quote, "So I haven't quite broken it to him yet, but he's going to campaign like it's 2024 again for all these people that he helps. He doesn't help everybody, but for those he does, he's a difference maker and certainly a turnout machine." But how effective is that really? Because Democrats have flipped a Georgia state house seat in a district that Trump won. This was just yesterday. Democrats on Tuesday flipped a state house seat in a red-leaning district in Georgia, delivering the party another notable win for the Democrats heading into next year's midterms. And that just follows the first Democrat elected mayor in 30 years in Miami, Florida. And that was a DeSantis-backed candidate, but, someone who isn't really aggressively Republican, but it's also Miami. So does this portend a very difficult midterm for the Republicans? Well, Mike Cernovich, who is kind of I wouldn't really say prolific voice on X, maybe just one of those, random posters. He actually had a pretty good post on X yesterday that I reposted. And he said this: "Republicans in Congress have decided to toss the midterms. They want to lose their Senate and House majorities, then Trump can be impeached again. This will create baggage for J.D. Vance and allow the chicken hawk warmonger establishment to take power back and do amnesty." Is there any truth to that? Well, let's welcome in Steve Deace, who is, of course, the host of the Steve Deace Show and one of our prolific, I will call him prolific, commentators here and guests here on the Jenna Ellis in the Morning Show. So, Steve, this is actually, I think, a reasonable concern that we know that the establishment sort of old guard GOP have for Trump's really entire presence in the political world. So since 2015, have been trying to get rid of him. They don't like the MAGA movement. There's always been sort of this internal clash, and this could be their moment. Because if midterms go poorly, they can say, well, listen, it's not our fault. We're in the minority. And then we know the Democrats are going to impeach Trump again, and that would just set up baggage for whoever Trump is trying to push in 2028, whether that's J.D. Vance or someone else. Where do you think this is all headed?
So, these conversations require more nuance than we typically permit. Human beings, I like to say, are not algorithms, okay, and subjective creatures by nature. So let's try to unpack this. Let's go back. I think we even have to take a step back from what Susie Wiles said. And let's go back to a decade ago. What we saw a decade ago before Trump is that the Democrats had the overwhelming personality, the omnipresent media personality as their leader, who both greatly inspired their own base to go to places previous Democrats could not get away with going to. But then, as a result of that, also greatly inspired rage in the opposing base, the likes of which we've never really ever seen on our side at the same time. And then, the demographics were different. We were still the suburban party. We were still the upper middle class party. Obama was the first Democrat to win the wealthiest of voters. But we didn't see the great split in the voting blocks that we have yet. And so our people were the ones with the discriminating, with the extra income, the extra time. And if you go back and look at the Obama years, we blew them out in 2 midterm elections. And then we lost the 2 times we faced him. Because in the midterm elections, when he was not on the ballot himself, Democrats received the maximum blowback for Barack Obama's policies and persona without any of the benefit of him actually being on the ballot to drive out people to vote for. The average black turnout for Democrats in the last 50 years is about 11.5% of the electorate. Obama drove it out to 13%. If you don't, but that may not seem like a lot, but folks, when you're dealing with tens of millions of people, it's a lot. That 1.5% is a lot. Okay. He also had historic Hispanic turnout for Democrats compared to what they've had prior and since. And so what's happened now, Jenna, is these demographics have reversed. The situation has reversed and the demographics are reversed. The greatest marker for how someone will vote is still how married you are. The more married you are, the more likely you are going to vote Republican. But now there is a competing second marker. How many diplomas do you have? The more diplomas you have, the more likely now you are going to vote Democrat. And so now it is the guy who spends 60 hours a week, roofing and laying drywall. That guy's voting for us now. And the guy sitting the guy sitting around still working from home with a master's, he's voting for them now. And so what we're seeing in these special elections and midterm elections now is our bases have swapped. And now the people that have the extra income and the time to pay attention to this, they are the ones voting Democrat, and they're destroying us in these low turnout elections where motivation is key. And many of our voters, without Trump on the ballot, are not paying attention, nor, frankly, do they care all that much for the Republican Party. They just believe in Trump, that he will disrupt the system overall. And the Republican Party brand is probably irrevocably damaged. And I would have said even 24 hours ago, there are still a few places and leaders like DeSantis in Florida that can overcome this malaise with Republican voters. But then, the Republican Party in Florida decided to go to war with its King Josiah since January. And now that doesn't even work. And you saw a Democrat win the mayor election in Miami for the first time in 30 years. So this is where we are right now. This is a complete inverse of where things were under Obama. And so what Susie Wiles is saying is we've got to nationalize this thing. Most of our people do not want to vote for these Republican candidates. And that's before we even get to the broader economic factors that are going to determine how normie voters vote in next year's midterms that are currently not in our favor. But there is still time to correct that. What we have to correct is our base not showing up. When John Curtis, a U.S. Senator from Utah, goes on CNN and says, I just think we should all wake up every morning and ask ourselves, how can we better serve foreigners in America? Our base doesn't watch CNN, but gets that clip in their X feed, sees that clip on Facebook and on Instagram. They don't want to vote for any of these guys. And I think you're right, and Cernovich is correct. That is what the Republican Party is thinking. But there's a fly in the ointment, okay? They don't understand that for the very first time, the base hates them every bit as much as they've always hated the base. The base hates them, knows who they are, and won't vote for them. And you can see it now. No one does content anymore that name me a major, blue check mark righty influencer that is spending any of their capital on their feeds right now, demanding people vote for a bunch of Republicans in these special elections that no one can stand. Most of the time, we don't even know their names and aren't even paying attention. And so that's the difference is, if anything, you'll strengthen J.D. Vance's hand in the next primary cycle, and these people will vote for him just out of spite for the kinds of Republicans that you're describing. Because that's what's changed. What's changed is now the base can see Mitch McConnell saying Ukraine is in between strokes. Ukraine is the most important issue in the world. Our people see all this now. And so for the first time now, they hate the Republican Party establishment every bit as much as it's always hated them. So that plan won't work. But you're right that is their plan. They do want to tank this thing. But frankly, some of this is also Trump's fault, and I'll explain why. When I get to heaven, one of the questions I will legit have for Jesus is, why did Trump endorse all these rhinos in all these primaries? Why did he do this? So since Trump became king of the GOP after the 2016 election, his first primary cycle was 2018. Jenna, are you ready to go Vance black? Are you depressed enough? Because I'm going to make it worse. Okay. Since
I need more coffee for this. Yes, go ahead.
Indeed. Yeah. Take a big swig and make sure it's black. Okay, no sugar. Since 2018, incumbent Republican senators are 56-0 in their primaries. 56-0. Can you name 6 Republican senators, incumbent senators, that didn't deserve a primary? Can you name 10? I know you can't name 56. Many of them were either Trump endorsed or he refused to endorse against them. These Republicans that he's complaining about, stymieing his appointments in this hot mic yesterday, he's correct about that. Just go look at how many of them he endorsed or how many he endorsed against or didn't he refuse to endorse against.
It's the Lindsey Graham problem.
So,
who's out there totally against him, but then Trump continues to endorse him.
Correct. Now I'll let 2018 and 2020 during the first term, when you're still learning the lay of the land and you're a political outsider, mercy triumphs over judgment. I'll let all that go. But with 4 years to think about it, and now seeing how bad these people hate you, how none of them came to your defense when they're trying to put you in prison. All right. None of them are out there demanding the American people get the facts on who shot you in the face and why. To continue to do this is mind-numbing. And I can just tell you, I'm very involved in my own gubernatorial race here in Iowa. But I hear I've had, just like you do, friends, sources, relationships all over the country. Let me tell your listeners what a Republican primary is like now. What a Republican primary is like now is all the conservative groups that used to get involved and try to help conservative candidates beat the establishment, none of them are involved in these primaries right now. They're all sitting them out. Why? Because they did this and then had Trump come off the top rope and endorse the establishment hack against him. And so now they're on the opposite side of the White House, and that's not good for business for anybody when it comes to how the political party and any political party or the process works to be consistently against the other side. In Arizona, right after he won election last year, Trump turned right around and endorsed the female John McCain rhino for governor. Thankfully, Charlie was still alive, went to Trump and said, listen, Andy Biggs wants to run. He's a great guy. He's loyal to you. Will you give him a co-endorsement? And Trump was willing to do that so that Andy Biggs now is going to roll to that primary win and may well be the next governor of Arizona. But the special election in Tennessee last week that everybody sweated, you want to know why you really sweated it out? You really sweated it out because John Rich, the country music legend, and the conservatives had a candidate that they all rallied around and loved. Trump came out of nowhere and endorsed the guy that they called, quote, Tennessee's Fauci, end quote, the guy that was still having Nashvillians wear masks in the summer of 2020. These people were furious. So John Rich went to Trump and said, hey, can I get a co-endorsement like you gave Andy Biggs? And Trump said, no, I'm really, really sorry that I did that. I didn't know you had a candidate, but no, I can't do that. And that's why Trump himself had to basically turn the last few days of that special election into an extension of his political brand to get our base to turn out. So
and the same thing is going to happen in Florida. The same thing is going to happen in Florida because Trump has already endorsed Byron Donalds that Floridians don't want. And if he's smart, he will co-endorse the preferred candidate, which currently is Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins if he enters the race. But, we'll see who that is. But I mean, the same thing is poised to happen in Florida. But go ahead.
Yeah, but Susie is correct. The number one thing we have to do, most of these Republican candidates are terrible. Our base absolutely detests them. And so Trump is going to have to essentially convince – this is going to be a tough poll. Essentially, Trump has to convince a bunch of Republicans or a bunch of our voters to turn out and vote for a bunch of Republicans that right now both he and our base are complaining won't do what we elected them to do last year. All right? I don't know how you do that. I have no idea how you do that, okay? But I will say this. I've seen Trump pull off things I had no idea you could do in the past, so I'm not going to count him out. But that's the needle that has to be threaded here. All right, next year, barring a massive Morning in America economic boom or a dot-com boom at the end of the 90s, which we may have. I mean, we don't know. But barring that, so if you have that, a lot of this goes away because people in general just like the direction of the country. But barring that, when Trump hits the campaign trail next year, that's what he's got to do. He's going to have to go out there and convince our people to go vote for a bunch of Republicans they already hate, that both Trump and our base knows are trying to sabotage his presidency. I don't know how you do that. Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, and this really is the setup and why so many people who actually care about this country, who aren't necessarily, just for the personality, cult and the infighting and the, whatever. This is all about what's best for the country. And we want good candidates to vote for. And we want the Republican Party to actually push a conservative priorities and the agenda and all of that are sounding the alarm right now. But in just the last few minutes I have with you, Steve, what, if any, impact do you see on all of this with the redistricting that's happening by Republicans? I mean, I think that overall with all of this that you just said, there may be a silver lining that could step in and save the day, which is federalism. And if the states actually accomplish redistricting, that could change the game just in terms of sheer numbers.
I agree. We don't know what those numbers are yet. And a lot of this is still going to get adjudicated all over the country into well into next year. But I agree with you that that's the case. The Senate map is still very much in our favor as well. But, listen, if there's one group of people that you can trust to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, it is the Republican Party. And this is what happens. This is the proverb, can two walk together arm in arm if they don't see eye to eye? This is the house divided against itself. The Republican Party has always been described as a big tent. It's really a big tarp. It's not. It has no stakes in the ground. It's just a covering that people who aren't communists run into for cover from communists. But when they come out after beating the communists and have to actually run the country themselves, they can't do it because corporatists and localists and conservatives and constitutionalists with just a more benign form of progressive globalism just don't have enough in common to actually govern together. And this is the pattern that happens. This happened in the last decade. The Tea Party was the insurgent, not MAGA. We had two massive midterm elections, and then Boehner and Republicans in Congress just sold us out when we gave them power. So this has all happened before, and it will continue to happen until there's a critical mass of people in the Republican Party who have enough ideological agreement on what to do differently than Democrats.
Yeah, and this is where I think we need to choose our next leader wisely. Trump is still going to be very involved in the mix unless, something like another impeachment or something totally sidelines him in a way that people don't actually follow him. I don't necessarily see that happening. I think that enough people are going to trust a lot of his endorsements and some of those things overall, even when he's not on the ballot. But when he's not on the ballot, as you rightly pointed out, Steve, there's a lot of people who just simply don't turn up because their buy-in and their investment is only for Donald Trump. It's not actually for conservatism. It's not for the Republican Party. And I think this is another thing that we as conservatives have failed to do during the entire arc of the Trump era is actually take the Trump voters and convert them into genuine conservatives. And even if it's not, wholesale, ardent supporters like, what you and I have been basically our entire lives, we can at least get them on board with the agenda, not just the personality, so that we don't have this sort of, crisis when he leaves. I mean, it's like if people come to a church just because of the head pastor and not for sake of the church and the body of Christ, then if that pastor, leaves or passes away and they're like, yeah, well, I have no motivation to go to church anymore. Well, then you were coming to church for the wrong reason anyway. And so we need to get especially over this next year, but especially the next 3 years, we need to convert more Trump supporters into genuine conservatives. So much more to do, but we're already out of time. Steve, really appreciate it. Of course, you should be following him on X. We will be right back with more.
Hi, I'm Doug Chamberlain, host of Family Health Checkup. For over 30 years, Samaritan members have come together to share medical costs and lift each other up in prayer. Now, I'm excited to tell you about Redeem Health Share Ministry, Samaritan's next generation of healthcare sharing. Redeem offers affordable, flexible programs that reflect your values and help you manage medical costs with confidence. Each month, members contribute a share amount to help pay each other's medical bills, and you choose the providers and treatments that are right for your family. It's not insurance, it's a community of believers supporting one another through life's health challenges. So, whether it's a routine visit or a sudden emergency, there's a caring Christian community walking with you every step of the way. Redeem Health Share. It's more than healthcare. It's hope. It's healing. It's faith in action. Call 1-844-REDEEM-0 today. Join the movement. Share joyfully. Live redeemed.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
Every day I speak with people who are worried and are feeling a lot of pressure because of credit card debt. That's why I'm very proud of what we do at Trinity. We just help. We give people the support they need, along with a real plan to become debt-free. Credit card bills are consolidated into a single monthly payment that is much less than what they were paying before. Most of our members end up saving thousands and even may improve their credit scores by as much as 200 points. I know from the bottom of my heart that I'm making a difference in the lives of the people we help. It just makes me really happy.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Julie, and I'm a Trinity counselor. Call me and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-788-1813.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Stern. Stand by for news and commentary next. Some churches across the nation have turned their nativity scenes into political statements. St. Susanna Catholic Church near Boston posted a sign on its nativity stating ICE was here. Joseph, Mary, and the baby Jesus nowhere to be seen. The church said they were snatched away by ICE agents. Now, woke theologians claim that Jesus was an illegal, but that's simply not true. Judea and Egypt were part of the Roman Empire. The Catholic Action League of Massachusetts said the display was offensive, accused the pastor of using the church as a platform to promote left-wing ideology. And Lake Street Church in Evanston, Illinois, depicted the baby Jesus with his hands zip-tied. Instead of wise men, there were ICE agents surrounding the manger. Mary wearing a respirator mask to protect her from the tear gas. The church also adorned with Black Lives Matter banners. Sounds to me like Jesus left those churches a long time ago. I'm Todd Stearns.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio.
Welcome back. Well, thankfully, in the free state of Florida, we still have some really amazing, I think the best in the country, freedom fighters. And one of those is our CFO, Blaze Ngolia, who just this morning earned an amazing endorsement from Governor Ron DeSantis. Of course, he's running for CFO again while he has been appointed to that position, and you should all go and listen to the governor's endorsement, basically saying that he expected great things, but that Blaze has totally exceeded those expectations, and I think he's just been absolutely killing it as the CFO. I was at a press conference probably a couple of months ago now in Orlando, where he was talking about just the sheer waste of government and how basically a similar view of what the federal Doge was supposed to do, he's now doing in Florida to point out where there is corruption and waste and actually save taxpayers more money, is for the property tax elimination. But now our CFO is fighting against illegal immigration, and I think this is a wonderful thing. So let's welcome in Gov Gone Wild, which is the wonderful handle, and I think my favorite across X. You can follow our CFO Blaze Ngolia at Gov Gone Wild. And good morning, Blaze. Tell us about your fight against illegal immigration.
Yeah, good morning, Jenna. Yeah, look, when I was in the House and the Senate, I was one of the leaders putting forth anti-illegal immigration bills and getting big reforms passed. But that's not going to stop me as CFO. We are looking at what we can still do as a state, what we can still do at my office. So to that end, we rolled out some proposals. Some of them are very common sense. Some of them are actually a little scary because I didn't even know that this was happening. You know, we had that issue with the truck driver, the CDL driver who didn't speak English in the state of Florida, killed people. I found out that the test is given in English, but the prep courses and the prep test in order to take the test is given in 45 different languages. We cannot expect people to pass tests in the state of Florida and be on the roads if they don't speak English. Another thing that I found out was the workers' comp statute here in the state of Florida explicitly says that illegal immigrants are eligible for workers' comp. Now, I don't think anyone realized that that was in the state statute, so I want to get rid of that, and I actually want to go a step further in saying that if you have a worker that is injured on a job, that you have to check E-Verify to make sure that they are eligible to work in the United States in the first place. And if they're not, then the employer has to pay for the health care. And the last big part of this proposal is that many people know that there are 19 states in the union that actually give driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. What many people don't know, and which was shocking to me when I found this out, was that there are insurance companies that are not only marketing to illegal immigrants in the United States, but offering and binding auto insurance coverage for them, which means that if you are an illegal immigrant in California and you have auto insurance and you're driving all over the United States, they can be on our roads here in the state of Florida. Now, Florida does not recognize driver's licenses from states that issue for illegal immigrants. But if you get into an accident with an illegal immigrant here in the state of Florida, I think that the illegal immigrant should automatically be at fault in a no-fault state like Florida. They should automatically be in fault because they shouldn't be on the road in the first place, and the insurance company has to pay. If you're going to market to them and you are going to create a magnet for illegal immigrants to come to the United States, if they get into an accident, the insurance company should pay. The insurance company should be held accountable.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense. And, you know, my former state, home state of Colorado, that was the selling point to voters when they allowed for illegals to obtain driver's licenses, because they said without driver's licenses, you can't get insurance. And if you get into an accident with someone who, as you pointed out, shouldn't be on the road to begin with, and they're not covered by insurance, then it's a lot more difficult. And so basically they were trying to say, you know, listen, they're going to drive anyway, so we might as well let them drive. I mean, it's the same irrational, stupid logic, Blaze, as it is with sanctuary cities or these drug zones that say, well, you know, you're gonna shoot up anyway, so you might as well, you know, go to a place where we know and we can cover you with, you know, medical necessities and stuff to take your illegal drugs to begin with. I mean, whatever happened to actual policing and just saying no?
I want to know what happened to common sense, Jenna.
Yeah.
Some people, I don't understand some of their thought processes. And, you know, and some of the people who love my proposal for not giving workers' comp benefits to illegal immigrants are actually against my proposal for not giving them auto insurance. It's still an insurance product. So you're either for illegal immigrants, giving them stuff, or not. You can't have it both ways.
Right. And this is where if people are coming in and they are illegal, then why should they benefit from any of the services and the taxpayer services, really, or any of these services like insurance or even bank accounts? Because, one of the things also that you have on your list is stopping the use of illegal alien IDs from being used to create bank accounts with a state chartered financial institution and cashier's checks, because a lot of those, they have to be FDIC insured. Why are we covering them when the whole premise is you shouldn't be conducting these activities anyway?
That's right. And let's put this whole thing in perspective here. If you're an illegal immigrant and you come across the southern border and you evade ICE and you start settling into the communities, you can, and I want people to wrap their head around this, and then you're going to realize that this is just a big problem. It's a 50-year problem that's never been solved, and it's being made worse by states and the federal government. You can come over illegally. You can have free health care. You can get down payment assistance to buy a home. You can get free education. You can get reduced cost tuition to go to states' universities. You can get jobs. You can get a driver's license. You can get auto insurance. It's like, where are people's brains? You're actually making it easier for people to come over illegally because we are basically subsidizing illegal immigration by creating these magnets with the federal government and the federal state. And then everyone is amazed that we have more and more illegal immigration. That's why I love the fact that we have a leader like Ron DeSantis in Florida and what Donald Trump is doing at the White House level, finally cracking down. But every single state should look at their laws like we are looking in Florida and get rid of these things that attract illegal immigrants to the communities. Because if we're making it so easy for them to come over and settle into our communities, come over illegally, what's the sense of coming legally?
Yeah, because it's so much more difficult and costly, and then you don't get as many benefits. I mean, I've even had, some friends who are younger, and they can't afford to put a down payment on a house and, have a lot of these other services that are provided. They say, why don't I just give up my citizenship, go over to Mexico, hop the border, and then I'd actually be in a better position. I mean, what is that telling the younger generation of actual Americans who are here in this country because it is genuinely their home and they have citizenship, that we as a nation seem to prefer to give all of the benefits to people who just want to be here instead of the people who genuinely are part of this nation already.
And you sort of lose the importance and the grandeur of being part of the community, part of the American experiment. Being part of a generation of people who are willing to work hard and fight for the freedoms. And the converse of that, and I think what we're seeing now, to your point, Jenna, is that we're seeing a lot of apathy. We're seeing a lot of people just taking advantage of the system. And we need to replace that with more meritocracy, with letting people know that, the world is your oyster. Here is the land of opportunity here in the United States, specifically in Florida. And that's one of the things we try to do here in the state of Florida is we try to set ourselves apart from the other 50 states. There are other states that are doing great jobs. Don't get me wrong. Texas, Utah, Tennessee to a certain degree but they're not Florida. We're trying to set ourselves apart from everyone else and say, here's your opportunity. You're going to have to work for it. We're not going to hand you the keys. You have to earn the keys. And when you do, you're going to have a great life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, same thing as earning the governor's endorsement, which you have. He's not just handing those out, kind of willy-nilly to just, here's the best of, maybe some not great options. I mean, to have the governor's endorsement is an earned thing, and that's just how for those, who love Governor DeSantis, how great Blaise Ingoglia is doing as CFO to have that passionate of an endorsement from Governor DeSantis. And so this raises the question, though, why are other red states not doing the same thing with respect to these issues that Florida is? I mean, Florida is so clearly leading the way, but we should at least have a few other red states that are at least trying to be at the level that Florida is.
So I can only guess of the reasons. Number one, and first and foremost, it's going to be the political will to get it done. Not care what the naysayers done. It's unfortunate, but I think that most Republican elected officials, I shouldn't say most, that's generalizing, many Republican elected officials don't want to do what they think they should do for fear of getting blasted in a Sunday editorial by a leftist editor. They govern to the lowest common denominator of people who are going to attacking them, and we need more people in public office that just don't care what the left says. That has a true north and going to do what is right. And the other part of that is I think that they are moderating for the sake of trying to get more voters. And that's like the opposite. When you don't stand for something, people view you as weak. And some of these, they're afraid of losing a U.S. Senate seat or losing a congressional seat or losing a governor's race. And I think like what Ron DeSantis did here locally in the state of Florida was prove that you can be bold, you can push a conservative agenda, and voters will reward you for it. So when Ron DeSantis became governor here, it was a purple state. It was 50-50. Actually, it wasn't 50-50. We were down 350,000 voter registrations to Democrats. Now we're 1.4 million voters more Republicans than Democrats in the states. That's a 1.7, 1.8 million voter swing. I think that some of these states will eventually get it, that when they govern boldly with the conservative view that voters are going to reward for them, they just haven't found that lane yet. I'm hopeful that they do and waiting until that happens.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that especially in the era of Trump and DeSantis, the conservative voters do not want to see weakness. They want to see leaders that are bold, that are standing up, that are go-getters. I mean, and this is why you've been such an incredible CFO, because, you've taken the bull by the horns and you started day one just saying, okay, what needs to be fixed? And that's the type of leadership that that the base respects and that people want to see, not kind of this, lack of a will to govern and say, well, I'm in office, but I want to just sit here and complain that I'm in the minority. And well, I'm really happy that I'm in the minority, so I don't actually have to stand for anything and actually govern. And so in the last few minutes I have with you, and I would encourage everyone to follow at GovGoneWild for all of these great updates. And even if you don't live in the state of Florida, you can see what's going on and you can encourage your state, especially if you are in a red state, to go and do likewise. But give us an update as well on kind of the Florida version of Doge and, everything else that you've been doing as CFO.
Sure. So far, since I've been in office, which has been just under 5 months, we have reviewed the spending of 11 local governments, cities and counties, both Democrat-led and both Republican-led. And we have found $1.86 billion, and that is billion with a B, in excessive and wasteful spending in just those 11 governments alone. So these are governments that have grown their government way past inflation and population and have blown past those numbers and are taking the extra property tax revenue here in the state of Florida and expanding government. And we are showing people that government has room to give substantial property tax relief ahead of what will be a constitutional amendment on Florida's November 2026 ballot to cut property taxes. Local governments do not want to hear that they are spending their money unwisely. They do not want to hear that they are overtaxing their citizens. But that is what's happening, and we are calling them out for it. And not only that, we are assigning a number to it. So we're going to continue doing that. I'm hopeful that I'm going to be in this position for 8 more years after getting elected in 2026. And I'm going to continue calling out government. I'm going to be on the side of the taxpayer. I view my job as being a taxpayer advocate, not a tool of big government.
Yeah, amazing. And I think, and we've got to take a break here, but Blaise and Golia, I really appreciate all of the attention to this. And I know that property tax is a huge issue for the state of Florida. It's been one that the governor has been pushing. And I think if Florida is successful, then not only will that prove and show to other states that it's actually possible to do this, but hopefully it will incentivize and inspire other states to, not just say that you have to go and basically always rent your home and your property from the government. So all of these things are so great. Again, go and watch that endorsement from Governor Ron DeSantis. It's up on X, and you can follow Blaise and Golia at GovGoneWild, and we will be right back with more.
Here's Pastor Jeff Shreve with From His Heart Ministries.
Do you have anything difficult in your life? Something that's facing you right now that is just too difficult for you? It may be impossible for you. It's not impossible for Him, and He wants to do a miracle in your life today.
Find real hope when you discover the power of Christ. Join Pastor Jeff Shreve on From His Heart, weeknights at 6 Central, here on American Family Radio.
Do you feel like you don't fully grasp the true depth of issues like religious liberty, sanctity of human life, stewardship, or marriage and family? AFA Activate is a Bible-based course with 13 different professors leading 18 sessions that can help you become an active, knowledgeable world changer. Do it by yourself, with your family, or church small group, and right now you can get 50% off. But hurry, this offer ends December 12th. Visit activate.afa.net today.
This is Abraham Hamilton III with AFR, and we're sending Bibles. Here's Michael with Bible League International.
Abraham, I'm coming to you and your wonderful listeners today with a very special request for the month of December, and I'm remembering John 1, where the apostle writes, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. The light has shone in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." And yet, would you know, in the regions of Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America, as many as 9 of 10 new believers have never read that scripture in their own Bible because they do not own one.
Everyone wants to read the Bible, but many of them will be sharing a single Bible.
Pastor Carlo there in the Andes Mountains will tell us that Christians are so desperate to grow in the grace and knowledge of Jesus, they are willing to share a Bible. This December, we want to bless 7,000 Bibleless believers so this year they can read for themselves the true Christmas story. So would you get involved today, Abraham?
$5 sends a Bible. $100 sends 20. $500 sends 100. Give by calling 800-YES-WORD. 800-YES-WORD. Or visit sendbiblesnow.org. That's sendbiblesnow.org.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink how you pay for health care, and here's why. This time of year is decision time for a lot of people, but it's also when you can join Medi-Share and save even more than usual. For many families, joining Medi-Share means saving about $500 a month, which is a game changer for a lot of people. More than 1 million people are part of healthcare sharing now because it just makes so much sense right now. And Medi-Share is the gold standard. Members like it a lot. We know this from member surveys. Medi-Share has been around for over 30 years. It is a proven thing. And if you join before December 15th and you mention the promo code SHARE, they'll waive your application fee. So you save $100 right off the bat. I'll give you the number here in a second, but just call. You'll get a price within 2 minutes. And again, the deadline's December 15th. Call now. You'll save even more. Here's the number. It's 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio.
Welcome back. Well, as we've been discussing throughout this hour, we as Christians need to do a really good job of making those conversions in the political space and the government space between the Trump supporters and converting them to the overall cause of conservatism. And when we talk about conservatism and what we are conserving in the realm of civil government, what that obviously means for the truth and pointing to the institutions that God has ordained is that we are conserving his order for society. So we are conserving the institutions that he has ordained, the civil government, the church government, and the family government. And so this all necessitates that as much as we may engage with news of the day and headlines, and we talk about this from a biblical worldview perspective, we as Christians are first and foremost called to be theologically sound. We shouldn't just be well versed in, the Republican agenda or the Trump agenda or even the conservative agenda overall. We have to realize that all of that rests on a foundation of the truth of the gospel of Christ, and that everything points back to Christ. And if you've been paying attention at all to the to Fox News and some of the tour basically that Erica Kirk has been doing over the last 24 48 hours, promoting Charlie's new and last book that is now unfortunately been published posthumously. It breaks my heart. It's so sad to see that this is going to be his final book. But this has been heavily promoted in obviously Republican but conservative circles, and I'm looking forward to reading it. But I want to preface this conversation by saying I have not yet read this book. It just came out literally yesterday. I did pre-order it. I'm looking forward to reading it. And the subject of this is the Sabbath, and that's what I want to talk about for the next few minutes, because I think, and I don't know Charlie's full perspective on this, but we as Christians need to be discerning, even when it comes to a voice as prolific and now totally beloved as Charlie. And at least what he has on the description, I agree with in this sense. He's calling for Christians to take a day to basically put everything else aside, because as all of you know who maybe even are driving to work this very moment and you're listening to this program live, or you are driving to all kinds of other things and you're listening to this later in the day, or whatever it busies you and fills your time during the week, it's good to take a day to focus on the Lord, focus on being present for your family, and to just rest. I mean, I know that I need that. I loved Thanksgiving, having a few days off during that holiday to not travel, not do anything other than just rest. And it's a very good thing, and we see that pattern throughout Scripture. But there is a danger of the term of keeping the Sabbath as if a specific day is commanded like it was in the Old Testament. And so I don't know, like I said, exactly what Charlie's position is, but this is what at least the description of the book, which is titled Stop in the Name of God, Why Honoring the Sabbath Will Transform Your Life. Now, honor is a different word than keep, so that already is encouraging. But it says, Stop in the Name of God, Why Honoring the Sabbath Will Transform Your Life. This book will help you discover how observing the Sabbath isn't a rejection of modern life, but a rebellion against busyness and a pathway to genuine connection, peace, and presence. Through Stop in the Name of God, best-selling author Charlie Kirk guides you on how to unplug, recharge, and connect with God, family, and yourself in a way that nurtures your soul. In a world dominated by screens and constant noise, Stop in the Name of God presents the Sabbath as a radical act of resistance, packed with practical insights and spiritual wisdom. Charlie Kirk demonstrates how honoring the Sabbath restores balance, reduces anxiety, and nourishes your soul. It's not just a day of rest, it's a lifeline to reclaiming what truly matters. So that description, I totally agree with. It's good to unplug, it's good to rest, it's good to focus on your family. Now, do you have to call it the Sabbath? Well, absolutely not. And do you have to have the Sabbath day on one specific day? No. Do you need to say that you are observing a day of rest? No. So let's go through quickly kind of an outline of why this matters, that it's not for the Christian to say, well, I have to honor or keep the Sabbath, because we know from Scripture and the full counsel of the truth of gospel of Christ that Jesus is our eternal Sabbath. He is our eternal rest. And so the biblical theme of rest is a major theological theme that began in creation and it culminated in redemption. The Sabbath command in the Old Testament prefigures or foreshadows a deeper spiritual rest that God provides. And so the creation foundation, and this was even before the nation of Israel, God's rest points forward to Christ. And so in Genesis 2:2-3, this is before the fall, God finished his work and rested, blessing and sanctifying the seventh day. So God's rest became a pattern for humanity. And then in Exodus 20, Israel's weekly Sabbath was grounded in God's creation rest, and that connects creation rest to covenant rest and ultimately pointing to redemptive rest in Christ. So the Sabbath in the Old Testament was a covenant sign between God and Israel and a shadow of the eternal rest in Christ under the Mosaic covenant, but it pointed to something greater. And in Colossians 2, Sabbath festivals, dietary laws were a shadow of the things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. That's Colossians 2:16-17. So it explicitly, the Apostle Paul, who's writing this, who himself was a Jew and had observed all of these things, he was a Pharisee, he kept the law, remember, but then ultimately had that conversion. He explicitly identifies the Sabbath as typological, not ultimate, or a command that post the redemption of Christ that believers must keep. And Jesus himself declared himself Lord of the Sabbath. So he has full authority over the Sabbath. This is in Matthew 12:8, Mark 2:27-28, Luke 6:5. The Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath. He is not merely interpreting the Mosaic or the Old Testament law. He is its fulfillment and ruler. His works reveal true Sabbath rest. So Matthew 11:28-30, come to me and I will give you rest. This invitation directly precedes Sabbath discussions in Matthew, showing that intentional connection. Jesus fulfilled the Sabbath by providing spiritual and eternal rest. And so Christ himself gives rest from sin, striving, and condemnation. Unlike the perfect creation week and the work that is good, work isn't a result of the fall, but the striving and the contending and the despair and the toiling of our labor, that is a result of the fall. And condemnation is a result of the fall. So we have peace with God through Christ, according to Romans 5:1, and we who have believed enter that rest, as Hebrews 4:3 says. So salvation is the eternal rest and is the Sabbath rest. Hebrews 4:9-10 says there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God, and believers rest from their work as God did from his. That Sabbath rest that the writer of Hebrews is discussing is not a weekly observance or a command that we must keep something under the law, but entering into Christ's finished work. When Christ says in John 19:30, it is finished, his completed work parallels God's completed creation work. And so the early church, this is why then with the new covenant, the fulfillment of Old Testament law, and then the new covenant in Christ's blood, believers then and the early church shifted from a Sabbath shadow rest to resurrection reality. Believers then started to meet on the first day of the week because the shadow had passed, and they were observing now the completed work of Christ on the cross, observing as we do every week his resurrection week. This is why some people think that you have to meet on Sunday. It is the Lord's Day. I don't go that far. We can, because the Sabbath is eternal, we're entering into Christ's work. We need to be involved in our local church. That is the command, but there is no command to meet on a specific day. If your church meets on, Saturday, Wednesday night, whatever it is, you just are commanded to be part of the church, which means that you were under the church's authority. But Christians are not bound to the Old Testament Sabbath law, just like we are not bound to any other Old Testament law. Romans 14:5 says, one person regards one day, another regards all days alike. Each must be convinced before God. There is no partiality in an observance of a day. Galatians 4:9-11, Paul rebukes returning to the calendrical laws tied to the Old Covenant. So combined with Colossians 2, the weekly Sabbath is clearly non-binding because it has fulfilled its typological purpose. The eternal Sabbath in the new creation in Revelation is that Christ brings final rest. You can see the full arc of the biblical story from creation to Revelation, that Revelation 14:13 says the saints rest from their labors. The new creation fully realizes what the Sabbath foreshadowed, which is eternal fellowship with God. That is the consummated Sabbath. So now, is it a good thing to, as Charlie is saying, at least in this description, set aside a day, rest, focus on God? Yes, absolutely. But be very, very careful as Christians not to confuse this with the Old Testament Sabbath, but understand that that was a shadow that Christ has fulfilled, and we can look forward to the eternal rest that we as believers have in Christ. As always, you can reach me and my team, Jenna, at afr.net.